How did a Labrador change a man's destiny in seconds? A push, a hand, a life saved by a canine's attention. Imagine those first 3 seconds that changed everything. A quick cut, the fall almost complete, and then a decisive move no one expected. Have you ever been there? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you and change the way you view the bond between humans and animals. In this true story, an elderly man was going about his daily routine. Slow steps, eyes focused on small gestures, perhaps some balance issues that come with age, and beside him, unnoticed by many, was an attentive Labrador retriever, his body firm, his gaze fixed on his owner's slightest sign. It's not just any dog. It's a story about hero dogs, about dogs who save lives in situations so banal they almost go unnoticed until the miracle happens. As I tell this story, I want you to feel the immediacy of the moment, the domestic setting, the sound of footsteps on the floor, the elderly man's shallow breathing, and then the contrast, the dog's calm alertness, the canine's alertness, awakening to imminent danger. Moving stories like this aren't just anecdotes. They raise important questions about care, responsibility, and training. Could such a simple gesture, a gentle push with the Labrador's body, a support that corrects its balance for a split second, really make the difference between a scare and a tragedy? The answer we'll pursue here isn't obvious, and for that very reason, it deserves your attention as you imagine this scene. Think about how many homes today have an elderly person accompanied by a pet. How many small mistakes could have different outcomes if a dog were there, watching over them? If you have an elderly friend or relative, if you've ever witnessed a dog guiding someone down the street or noticing something before us, share your experiences and stories of dogs that saved lives in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your experiences and stories of dogs that have saved lives. Throughout this video, we'll discuss how a Labrador retriever, due to its attentive nature and bond with its owner, often acts before anyone even realizes the danger. We'll also explore why certain canine behaviors act as instinctive support, almost like an emotional and physical sensor that protects. It's not just about romanticizing the hero dog. There's science, there are documented examples, and there are simple practices that strengthen this bond and increase the chances of effective interventions in critical moments. Listening to the family's testimony and imagining the slow reconstruction of that life-saving gesture, you'll realize that small actions, a nudge, a push, a gentle touch, can have enormous repercussions. What you'll discover now may surprise you about how training, routine, and mutual attention transform an animal into a true life partner. Stay with me, because in the next few scenes, we'll return to the exact moment of the push, hear details from those present, and get a practical explanation from experts on canine care and fall prevention. We'll also talk about how anyone can strengthen this bond and what simple precautions can save lives. And then, once you understand what happened in that decisive second, you might start to see your own dog, or the idea of having one, in a different light. Now get ready. Let's revisit the moment in slow motion and discover, step by step, how this Labrador made all the difference. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what resonated with you most. Share an experience, a memory of an animal that made a difference in your life, or even a fear you have about seniors and falls. Your story could comfort someone, alert someone else, and perhaps inspire a new act of care. Your participation here isn't just a number. When you comment, like, and subscribe, you help this content reach more people, and that means more families, more dog owners, and more people who care for seniors will see real examples of prevention and affection that, in practice, save lives. So if this story resonated with you, click like. It's a simple gesture that reinforces the message, and subscribe to continue receiving moving stories about life-saving dogs and practical tips for protecting those we love. I want to build a community here that talks, learns, and acts together. Your words in the comments feed this space, and every like and subscription gives us the chance to produce more real stories, more helpful advice, and more testimonials worth reading. Now that you've left your mark here, whether with a comment, a like, or a subscription, let's go back to the decisive moment and watch, in slow motion, the Labrador's gesture that changed everything. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. I close my eyes for a moment and return to the scene with you. The house is small, full of stories framed on the walls, yellowed wedding photographs, a smiling grandson in black and white, a landscape reminiscent of a long-ago trip. The elderly man we're talking about isn't just a subject in a scene. He's an entire life, compressed into simple gestures. The teacup always in the same place on the table, the carefully folded tablecloth, the clock that no longer tells the time so accurately, but follows routines. He walks with a measured step, as if calculating each movement to conserve energy and avoid a stumble. To the right, leaning against the chair, is his cane. Next to the armchair, a medicine bottle with a crumpled label, recalling doses and times, silent signs of fragility that only those who live with him notice. Feel the details, the tiled floor, the slight creak as he places his foot. The light streaming through the window, casting a golden streak across the rug he usually walks on. The distant sound of the radio playing a song that brings back memories. These are the behind-the-scenes of his journey. Small routines that function as a comfort zone and at the same time as a map of hidden risks. The hidden truth behind this daily routine is that fragility doesn't warn in advance. It reveals itself in the smallest things: a step off the path, a rolled-up rug, a choked saliva, a fleeting vertigo. Have you ever imagined losing your balance in a split second? Think about it for a second. The impact of a fall isn't just physical, it's emotional, transforming the mindset of an entire family, changing decisions, and can alter the course of an entire life. His hands tell a story all by themselves, once robust hands, now marked by more prominent veins and movements that no longer have the same firmness as before. A close-up of his hands serves as a bridge to empathy. It's there that the audience recognizes someone who could be our grandfather, our uncle, or even ourselves in the future. Capture that feeling. Imagine the texture of his skin, the small stains of time, his short nails, the way he holds an envelope with some important correspondence. And in the frame on the wall, that photo of that granddaughter who lives far away and who calls sometimes. These simple elements bring depth, revelations about loneliness, care, and the impact an attentive animal can have when it becomes part of this routine. On the day of the incident, the atmosphere was so ordinary that almost no one imagined the outcome. It was a calm morning with soft light filtering through the curtains. It could have been inside the apartment, near the door leading to the small balcony, or even on a quiet sidewalk in front of the corner market. Details that matter because they show how mundane situations transform into critical moments without fanfare. The mentality of those who care often normalizes risks. He's always done it this way. He's walked alone so many times. This familiarity creates a false sense of security, and that's when small decisions, a misplaced shoe, a poorly positioned bag, a treacherous step, can change everything. The caregiving journey is made up of seemingly trivial choices that accumulated define safety or danger. As I describe this, imagine the elderly person's breathing, a slow, perhaps irregular rhythm, the expression focused on the effort to stand, the gaze searching for something familiar, perhaps the cane, perhaps the support handle. These signals, though subtle, are maps that an attentive dog reads like no one else. But before we get to that, we need to understand the human scenario, understand everyday decisions, and realize that real transformation begins when someone, family, neighbor, caregiver, decides to adjust the environment, train behaviors, and cultivate a bond of trust. There are emotional undercurrents, unspoken fears, hidden stories, the pride that prevents an elderly person from asking for help. All of this forms the scene and magnifies the impact of what a canine gesture can represent. There's also a cultural dimension to this care. In many homes, the animal is seen as companionship. In others, as yet another responsibility. But when we talk about dogs that save lives, what changes is the quality of the bond, the continuous attention, the understanding of the other's needs, and an almost intuitive sensitivity. It's a truth few people immediately grasp. Daily observation, routine touch, small rewards, and constant presence form a protective mindset in both the human and the animal. And it's this mindset that, on the right day, makes the difference between a story of loss and a story of miracle. As you imagine the elderly person performing their small tasks, remember the decisions that seemed trivial until the moment everything nearly collapsed, leaving the door ajar, not securing the rug, carrying 2 grocery bags at once. Each choice carries weight that combined shapes the environment. And when we look at the entire journey, years of habits, physical and emotional changes, silent selves, we understand why a push, a support, an instinctive gesture can represent much more than a simple movement. It is the result of a bond, of subtle training, of daily cultivated attention. This is the transformation I want you to feel. Not just the extraordinary event, but the entire process that preceded it. The behind the scenes that allowed, in that second, the Labrador's action to emerge as a response. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, and in doing so we'll explore every detail of that day. Hear the little revelations of those who were there. Understand the decisions that could have been different, and why, even in the midst of routine, some gestures were so decisive. Comment, "That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject." Take a deep breath and return with me to the exact moment when everything changed. The sound of the floor being dragged. The elderly man leaning forward as if reaching for something. A bag tugging lightly on his arm. A rug rolling up under his foot. These are micro-movements, almost invisible, that foreshadow the fall. And it was precisely in these small signals that the Labrador acted. Before the life-saving push, there was a barely audible bark of concern, a leaning forward that seemed to seek confirmation, a fixed gaze that wouldn't waver. First came the canine attention. The dog stood beside him, aligned his body with his owner's, rested his chest against his leg and, in a gesture that blended instinct and training, pushed with his shoulder, creating a fulcrum that corrected the elderly man's center of gravity. It wasn't a single sudden movement. It was a sequence, a warning, a support, a restraint that happened in fractions of a second. Now think with me. What did the Labrador do that no sensor could? A sensor can detect movement. It can warn that something is out of balance, but it doesn't sense the will, fear, or intention of the person walking. The dog, on the other hand, responds to subtle signals we don't even notice. Muscle tremors, changes in breathing, the infinitesimal shift of weight. This is called proprioception, the animal's ability to sense its own body and the bodies of others in relation to space, and, combined with canine social sensitivity, it transforms an attentive dog into a kind of mobile lifeline. While a camera might have recorded the fall, the Labrador read the intention of the movement and intervened precisely, adjusting its own body to provide support. Improbable but effective. Visualize it in slow motion. The elderly man stumbles on the rug. His body leans forward. His arms instinctively reach for something to hold onto. At that moment, the Labrador planted his paws on the ground, turned his chest and, with a slight push, pushed the man's hip back, while his front paw rests against his shin, as if holding on. It's a movement that combines strength and delicacy, a push that doesn't push to knock him down, but rather repositions and redirects the center of mass. Then, when he realizes the fall has been avoided, the dog maintains contact. Nose touching hand, gaze fixed, breathing calming. This checking gesture is as important as the physical action, because it conveys security and allows the elderly man to regain emotional as well as physical balance. A witness to the scene, the daughter who was in the kitchen, summed it up in a short, truthful sentence. I saw him push and hold as if he knew exactly what to do. If it weren't for him, my father would have fallen. This simple statement carries weight and authenticity. It's part of the behind the scenes of this journey, a revelation that explains the real impact of that second. The hidden truth of everyday scenes is that we often expect something extraordinary to happen in order to react. When, in practice, transformation occurs through a series of habitual decisions and precautions, caring for the rug, keeping paths clear, training the animal, creating communication signals that facilitate quick responses. From a practical standpoint, the Labrador's behavior combines conditioning and empathy. Over time, he's learned to associate certain sounds and postures with risk, the shuffling of a foot, a hesitation in his step, a deep sigh. The mindset of those who live with an elderly person and a dog is therefore crucial. Small routines, called conscious decisions, build an environment where the animal can truly act when necessary. Simple training, positive reinforcement for behaviors that encourage closeness and attention, and a stable routine create this predisposition. It's not just luck or spontaneous heroism. It's also the result of a bond cultivated daily, a journey of care that has its own rituals and learning. There's also an emotional component that can't be overlooked. After the push, the calm that came in the elderly man's eyes, the hand that rests on the dog's nose, the shy hug that comes as implicit gratitude, all of this magnifies the impact of the action. The effect isn't just physical. It's a reconfiguration of trust, a small rebuilding of courage to continue the daily routine. This transformation has repercussions for the entire family. Decisions about care are reshaped, the way the house is organized is changed, habits are adjusted. The intimate laboratory of this story reveals that the true miracle lies as much in the direct action as in the changes it provokes in the family's collective mindset. When we describe the moment in detail, it's impossible to separate the gesture from the context. Behind that push lie years of familiarity, subtle training, constant observation, and an attention that has become almost intuitive. The impact of this act, a life saved, a scare avoided, reverberates in small but profound revelations. That care can be preventative, that companionship can be protective, that everyday decisions shape destinies. By suggesting a slow-motion reconstruction of that key gesture, we can perceive nuances that go unnoticed by the naked eye. The contraction of a muscle, the adjustment of a shoulder, the pause that precedes the action. These details, shown behind the scenes, transform the understanding of what happened into something tangible and educational, and it's precisely at this intersection between instinct and learning that the greatest lesson emerges. Dogs who save lives aren't just momentary heroes. They're partners forged by routines, repeated choices, and an affection that translates into active vigilance. The journey that led to this push includes nights of companionship, mornings of walks, conversations interrupted by a glance, and many small decisions that, when accumulated, produce an extraordinary impact. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Comment: that makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. After the gesture that prevented the fall, the atmosphere changed almost imperceptibly. The shock gave way to a contained relief. The previously rapid breathing calmed down, and the house seemed to regain its usual rhythm, only with a new awareness in the air. The elderly man stood, still leaning on the Labrador's warm chest, his trembling hands searching for the cane, as if asking for confirmation that everything was okay. His daughter ran to him within seconds, eyes welling up, and the first words that came out were a mixture of astonishment and gratitude. "He saved me." There were no screams, no unbridled panic. There was recognition, a slow shock that gradually translated into relief and practical action. checking for pain, looking for signs of scratches, deciding if a trip to the emergency room was necessary. At that moment, the difference between could have been and was avoided was revealed in concrete details. The intact skin, the posture that recovered, the elderly man's gaze that returned to focus, and the family that realized, for the first time clearly, how fragile the line is between a safe routine and a life-changing accident. Some decisions were made right there. In the hallways of the house, the daughter insisted that her father sit down, brought water, called a neighbor to help steady the handrail. Someone suggested a medical checkup just in case. The presence of a caregiver or a home health service emerged in conversations as a practical adjustment, simple decisions, but with a real impact. These choices, so often postponed for reasons of routine or pride, took on a new color when confronted with the possibility of what could have been. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was a reconfiguration of family priorities, a redesign of care that until then had seemed distant. The hidden truth that emerges is that prevention is often the result of small changes and a careful attention to what goes unnoticed. To make more sense of this outcome, it's important to bring in an authoritative voice to explain why dogs act this way. A dog trainer heard as a voiceover sums it up bluntly. Dogs develop a physical and social sensitivity that allows them to identify subtle changes in the behavior of those they live with. Changes in posture, breathing rhythm, micro-muscle tremors. It's not magic. It's perception and association, built through coexistence and reinforcement. This explanation lends credibility and helps connect emotion to logic. This isn't just an isolated heroic act, but a behavioral pattern that can be stimulated and strengthened. Upon hearing this statement, the family in that house and any onlooker understand that the Labrador's gesture is both instinctive and the result of a long journey of emotional connection and conscious decisions made over time. The emotional impact of the episode reverberates beyond the immediate bond between the elderly man and the animal. Neighbors commented, friends called, and the story began to circulate as an example of care and emotional responsibility. Behind the scenes, the family began discussing how to reorganize the house, fixing rugs, installing strategic supports, reviewing the amount of medication on hand, and even considering small adaptations to facilitate mobility, all decisions that seem trivial until an accident nearly occurs. These changes are practical revelations of what I call a protective mindset, a set of attitudes that anticipate risk and transform the environment into a safer space. And it is this mindset that, combined with the bond between human and dog, produces a real and measurable impact on quality of life. There's also a symbolic healing effect. When the daughter assures everyone that they feel calmer after what happened, it's not just physical relief, it's a reinforcement of emotional confidence that they're not alone in this journey. This sense of security helps reduce the elderly's anxiety, improves coexistence, and can even influence long-term medical and behavioral decisions. In terms of transformation, then, the Labrador's gesture triggers a process. The immediate impact saves a body. The emotional support reconfigures habits. The practical decisions alter routines to prevent new risks. And the revelations about the value of bonding produce a new family mindset. From a data and anecdotal perspective, there is a growing body of documented cases and studies that point to the ability of companion animals to reduce risks in domestic environments, from noticing seizures to early detection of behavioral changes that precede accidents. These reports don't automatically transform every dog into a lifesaver, but they help build the understanding that presence, training, and bonding are elements that significantly increase the chances of effective intervention. This way, the story stops being just a singular episode and becomes part of a larger narrative about prevention, responsibility, and the role animals can play in protecting vulnerable people. And here comes the human aspect of care. Responsibility isn't just a checklist item. It's a daily practice that involves choices, from where to place a mat to how to teach commands that bring the dog closer in moments of risk. The bond is the sum of attention and affection, and training is the tool that translates this bond into a practical response. When these pieces fit together, the result is a situation where canine instinct finds fertile ground to act effectively. The revelations emerging from this episode show that miracles are often the result of well-applied routine and care, a concept that redefines the idea of heroism as something constructed, not merely spontaneous. Observing the family's reactions, the precautionary medical care, and the subsequent household reorganization, it's clear that the Labrador's gesture was the catalyst for a change in attitude. The impact is widespread. A redesign of daily life, more conscious decisions, and a new understanding of what it means to have a companion animal. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic. Comment, that makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Consider the practical lessons that arose from that moment. The Labrador made the gesture that prevented the fall. It wasn't just luck. It was a combination of choices, routine, and daily care that combined generated transformation. The first lesson is about basic training and attention to behavior. Simple obedience training, sit, stay, come when called, is the foundation. But there are specific exercises that increase the dog's sensitivity to its owner. Proximity work, positive reinforcement for remaining close to the elderly person, and contact commands, which teach the animal to seek and maintain touch. These exercises don't require hours a day. They require consistency and conscious decisions. The mindset of those who live with an elderly person needs to consider the animal's routine as part of the care plan. When the dog learns to respond calmly to subtle cues, it becomes part of the prevention network. And this is precisely what differentiates a normal coexistence from a protective partnership. Next, consider home adaptations. Small adjustments have a huge impact. Non-slip mats, paths free of objects, nighttime lighting in hallways, well-positioned handrails, and seats with adequate support transform a risky environment into a safe space. These simple decisions, often postponed out of haste or habit, are the backstage of prevention. Putting things in their place, reducing unnecessary steps, and ensuring stable surfaces is a practical way to show respect, not only for the elderly, but also for the bond that exists between them and the animal. The transformation we seek is practical and tangible. Small actions today can save someone tomorrow. There are also lessons in observation and preventative health. Paying attention to signs of changes in a senior's behavior, hesitation when walking, loss of confidence, dizziness, medication side effects, allows you to anticipate risks. Similarly, observing changes in a dog's behavior, anxiety, restlessness, unusual approach, can be a sign that something in the environment has changed. The hidden truth many families discover is that mutual vigilance between human and animal creates an extra layer of security. Regular doctor and veterinarian appointments, medication reviews, and mobility assessments are decisions that prevent accidents while also strengthening the caregiving journey. Another essential point is choosing the right equipment. A vest or a support handle for the dog, when appropriate and trained with the help of a professional, can facilitate support. Non-slip shoes for the elderly, handrails, sturdy bathroom stools, and chairs with armrests also contribute to a safer routine. But be careful. Equipment isn't enough without training and understanding. The real impact comes when equipment and behavior work together, when the dog has become accustomed to working in close proximity and the elderly person has learned to trust touch and support. This synergy between tools and training is a revelation few anticipate, but it makes all the difference. Emotionally, the transformation is equally powerful. The bond between senior and dog is a source of affection, but also of responsibility. Cultivating this bond requires time, patience, and decisions that foster coexistence, regular walks to keep the animal calm and fit, games that encourage focus and obedience, and touch routines that bring closeness without forcing. A protective mindset is built over days, not hours. It's a journey that involves small revelations, realizing that a dog's look might indicate fatigue, that a sigh from the senior reveals dizziness, and adjusting attitudes accordingly. From a practical standpoint, it's worth noting that there are professionals who assist in this process. Canine trainers specializing in support work, physical therapists who guide balance exercises for seniors, and occupational therapists who help reorganize the environment. Seeking this help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a strategic decision that improves safety and quality of life. By integrating technical knowledge with affection and routine, we build a more comprehensive care model, a framework where insights into behavior and intervention possibilities emerge clearly. Everyday decisions have a direct impact on the likelihood of an incident, reducing the number of obstacles in the path, keeping medication organized, ensuring hydration and light exercise, and training the animal to respond calmly and presently. All of this creates a scenario of prevention. In terms of transformation, what we see is that the miracle of that push was not an isolated event. It was the convergence point of a journey of care, of a mindset that understands that protection is built through repeated actions. The moving stories we often tell share this pattern. The heroic action is visible, but behind the scenes, the routines, the training, the choices are where the real change lies. And finally, there's an ethical and emotional component that's impossible to ignore. Taking responsibility for an animal and a vulnerable person requires commitment. If you have a dog, thinking about how to integrate it into your care routine is also an act of love that can have a real impact. If you care for an elderly person, small interventions today, talking to a dog trainer, fixing a rug, reviewing their medication, can shape a more secure future. This is the essence of the transformation we seek, not just the feeling of an isolated miracle, but the slow and intentional construction of an environment that fosters life. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, and as we open this next door, we'll explore practical examples of simple exercises that any family can start implementing tomorrow, as well as hear stories from those who have experienced this reality firsthand and the concrete changes they've made since. Comment below, "This resonates with me," if you've made it this far. Thank you for walking with me through this story. Knowing you're here gives meaning to what we do, bringing stories that combine emotion and practice to protect those we love. If these lessons and this look at bonding, training, and small decisions resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Here we continue to bring you real stories and practical tips that truly help in your daily life. It's the best way to ensure you receive useful and transformative content like this. If you made it to the end, write in the comments, "I'm with you until the end." I want to see who made this journey with me today and read their impressions. Also, leave a like if the story touched you. It's a simple gesture that shows the connection and helps us understand what's worth exploring further. There's a video here that complements this topic, with practical exercises and real-life examples that help you put everything into action. Click and stay with me there. Let's continue discovering how small actions transform lives with care and affection.